So for this demo, we're going to do a quick little study of how we can add some more natural looking skin color on top of an underpainting that has a really purple toned shadow wash. So I'm going to begin by mixing some burnt sienna, a little bit of white, and just a touch of, actually I'm going to keep it just burnt sienna and white for this one. And I'm going to add some glaze in to make it thinned out, a little translucent. I'm counting on the blues and the purples to kind of cool this down. You can see that it's still pretty translucent, and we can go ahead and coat over most of the areas. I'm going to leave my highlights nice and bright, but I'm going to let it travel over most of the shadows. If there's somewhere I want a shadow to stay really dark, I could reserve that area and not go over it as darkly or as heavy. So you can see already that the shadows are still going to show through. It's going to build up. Our paint is still opaque, obviously, but with a little bit of glazing medium in it, it still allows those shadow colors to come through. I'm going to add in a little extra white and start bumping up our value in our brightest areas. So carving out our highlights, cheekbone, front of the face, edges of ears, nose tip, bottom lip, where the chin pushes forward. I'm going to mix a warmer color because the only issue with using really a lot of cool tone in your underpainting is that they can look a little dead as you work up. So we're going to work on adding more warmth into the face. So I've got kind of a deep red. I've mixed just a touch of that into our base skin tone. So I've made kind of a nice neutrally blush tone, adding a little bit of it into that glazing medium mix that we already had with the skin tone, and adding it into cheeks and noses and along brow bones. And then a trick that I use a lot just to make things come back to life, and thinking about also color theory, right? So if our base color is purple, a little bit of yellow added in, especially if we're thinking about there being kind of like a beam of light or a beam of shadow in this area down center, just really thinly added in with mixed into our base skin color that we already created, but just using that little bit of yellow to just pat in on top of this. So I've got lots of glazing medium on this. It's not drying. So I'm using a bit of a patting motion and a flat brush. And with that, I'm able to build up a good amount of skin color without picking up what's underneath. If I went over it with kind of a heavy hand, it would peel up the layers from underneath, and that would be kind of frustrating. So you need to use a little bit of a delicate touch as you're working up. To mix up more shadow, I've mixed my purple tone with some burnt sienna, a little bit of glazing medium, and it's created a really nice neutral but cool toned shadow. The burnt sienna helps give it a little bit more warmth and a little bit more life than the purple on its own. And here I'm using a rounder brush with a point. It gives me a little bit more control because for these shadows, I'm certainly wanting to carve them in. This is where we're getting our shape back. So when I was doing those glazes, we could be a little bit more rounded, a little bit more careless about how we lay them in. We're starting now to carve back in specifics. Since everything's still wet, this is kind of like wet blending. I'm able to feather out edges of things so I can lay down kind of a heavier layer and then just sort of take my brush, clean it, use a clean damp edge of the brush and feather it into the layers underneath. The medium has that slow dry component that's keeping it open and workable for me. So we end up with nicely blended edges. You can see we've brought a lot of life back into this. We're able to very quickly add skin tone in while using that purple underlayer to do our values for us. We didn't have to do too much on the shading side of things, and I hope that that helps. Good luck.